Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. Last week, Friday night, two horrifying videos were made public. The killing of Tyre Nichols by Memphis police, which we covered on this show as it were released, and we will return to this evening. There's also the surveillance video and body camera footage from the brutal attack of the husband of then Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. Police released this video on your screen of the attacker casing Pelosi's house, sort of scoping it out there. Crucially, they also released video of this moment depicting the suspect breaking into Pelosi's house to carry out the attack. And finally, there is the video of the attack itself. Now, as you can imagine, this video is profoundly disturbing and graphic, and we're going to play it just once because we believe you have the right to see it. We believe showing it is in the public interest, considering particularly the amount of misinformation, disinformation, and outright scurrilous nonsense there has been surrounding the attack. But please be warned that viewers may find the video disturbing.
Yeah, Lily said that. Hi, guys. How you doing?
How are you?
What's going on, man?
Everything's good.
Hi. Drop the hammer.
Nope. Hey.
What is going on right
I'm
now?
not getting an answer on call back.
Bro,
Calls in the area that is coming in, yeah.
I got him, Michael.
Paul Pelosi miraculously survived that attack. Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi says her husband has a long road ahead of him, that he is making progress in his recovery.
It's with a grateful heart and on behalf of my entire family that we continue to thank people for all of their prayers that they continue to send us, asking about the progress my husband is making, and he is making progress, but it'll take more time.
Madam Speaker, how is your husband doing?
It's coming on. Thanks.
Now, in addition to being downright horrifying, the videos of the moments leading up to the attack on Paul Pelosi, as well as the attack itself, debunk definitively a number of right-wing smears that were directed at this 82-year-old man after he suffered a brutal attack that landed him in the ICU. You see, while some Republicans, like, for instance, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, were capable of conjuring just like the most basic, normal response of a politician to condemn the brutal assault of one of their colleagues' spouses and wish them well, a lot of Republicans, conservatives, were not willing to do that bare minimum. It was really a disgusting spectacle, shocking, honestly, even by the degraded standards of our era. In fact, many prominent Republicans did the exact opposite. They smeared Paul Pelosi, the 82-year-old man who had been assaulted in his home in the dead of night with a hammer to his skull. They spread the lie that he knew his alleged attacker, or that the two had a personal relationship, or that Pelosi willingly let him into his house, and they mocked the 82-year-old victim of an attempted murder. Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia, for example, called the suspect in the attack quote, Paul Pelosi's friend. Isn't that clever? In a tweet where she accused the media of spreading misinformation. Republican Congresswoman Claudia Tenney of New York shared and then deleted this meme of a bunch of men holding hammers next to a gay pride flag. Isn't that a funny joke? That's a joke about the 82-year-old man being almost murdered with a hammer to his head, implying that he was carrying on a secret gay love affair. Two Arizona Republicans, then gubernatorial candidate Kari Lake, Congressman Andy Biggs, both publicly joked about the attempted murder just days after the attack.
Nancy Pelosi, well, she's got protection when she's in D.C. Apparently her house doesn't have a lot of protection.
We're going to show Nancy Pelosi the door very shortly. Don't let it hit you on the backside, Nancy. Hey, yeah, she's losing the gavel but finding the hammer. Too soon? Is that too soon?
Again, the comedy there, the reason that's funny to those people is that this 80-year-old man was almost murdered by someone that broke into his house and put a hammer through his skull. That's the joke to these people. That's the funny thing at the end of that punchline. Naturally, the brunt, the conspiracy theory, and the wink-wink, just asking questions shtick came from Fox News and other right-wing media outlets.
How did this homeless drug addict even get inside the house? Now, there was glass broken at the rear door. You've seen those photos, but there looks like there's glass on both sides.
It's weird things going on in that household in the last couple of weeks. The glass, it seems, was broken from the inside to the out. And, you know, it wasn't a break-in, it was a breakout.
Just produce the police body cam. Why is that so hard? We're not the crazy people, you're the liars. There's nothing wrong with asking questions, period. Paul Pelosi walked away from the police and toward David DePape? What could possibly explain behavior like that? And what were the two doing for the 30 minutes before police arrived? The police, for some reason, have refused to release that body cam footage. We get body cam footage every day in the news business, but they won't release this. What is going on here? Why are they hiding this? Is there a good reason? We don't know.
I don't know. I'm just asking questions here. Well, what happened? They did release a video. You just saw it. Shows that the attack was exactly what we always knew it was, what every credible report indicated it would be, what Occam's razor would suggest it was. So what happened? Big mea culpas, big apologies. We got that wrong? No, of course. Of course not. There's no fact in the world that's going to course correct here. That didn't deter Fox from pushing its same smears. They're still doing it with the video, in fact. Because the facts, reality itself, don't actually matter. That's just ancillary. I mean, of course, they knew it all was all nonsense from the beginning. Well, I don't know. I think most of them, some of them are not that bright. But they just don't care. And that wasn't even the only right-wing lie about the attack that was debunked this weekend. There's another popular bit of disinformation on the right, again, circulating widely, which says that Pelosi's apparent attacker, who had a blog you could yourself read full of hundreds of pages of obvious right-wing conspiracy screeds, who seems to be a supporter of QAnon, the far-right cult that worships Donald Trump as a messianic figure, was actually some kind of political lefty and not a conservative at all. Now, it's true, he made some sort of weird trajectory over the course of his life, but Republican Senator Ted Cruz of Texas pushed this particular lie just days after he initially condemned the attack and political violence, sharing a post from a self-described, and I'm not making this up, theocratic fascist, reading, quote, "I don't know what the hell happened at Nancy Pelosi's house, and I suspect none of us ever will." Real big mystery, right? But I do know that trying to paint a hippie nudist from Berkeley as some sort of militant right-winger is absurd and will always be absurd. So that's the view that Senator Ted Cruz retweeted. Senator Ted Cruz, we might never know what happened there. Of course, we know what happened. And of course, the idea that he was a militant right-winger is not absurd. This was not hard to figure out if you are capable of reading. He wrote it down. His blog posts are full of far-right, anti-establishment kind of nonsense about COVID-19, QAnon, the Tree of Liberty, right? All the kinds of bizarre, confused, conspiratorial stuff that you get from right-wing internet, Fox News these days. And in case, that wasn't enough, this weekend, the man in question reportedly made a telephone call from his jail to a local San Francisco journalist who'd reached out for an interview. In the call, the man who has pled not guilty not only just doesn't express remorse for his actions, he says his only regret is that he did not hurt more people.
Now that you all have seen the body cam footage, I have an important message for everyone in America. You're welcome. Freedom of liberty isn't dying. It's being killed, systematically and deliberately. The people killing it have names and addresses. So I got their names and addresses so I could pay them a little visit and have a heart-to-heart chat about their bad behavior. The tree of liberty needs watering. You need men of valor, patriots willing to put their own lives on the line to stand in opposition to tyranny. I would also like to apologize. I want to apologize to everyone. I messed up. What I did was really bad. I'm so sorry I didn't get more of them. It's my own fault. No one else is to blame. I should have come better prepared.
Later on that same interview, the suspect also appears to reference the right-wing conspiratorial blog that he wrote, claims that he was being censored by big tech for his beliefs. Where have you heard that before? Another completely banal talking point on the far right. So again, this was really remarkable. I mean, the Speaker of the House's husband is almost murdered in his home by a guy who says that he's looking for the Speaker of the House just a week or so before the election, right? on a quest to commit essentially political murder or political kidnapping. And much of the conservative world, the conservative media, right-wing establishment, politicians are just like, I don't know, just asking questions. Maybe that's a pretty funny joke. It's gross. Everything that Fox and Republican politicians have been pushing about this case is both false and dangerously false. It is, as is so much over there, a twisted inverse of reality, easily disproven by the evidence we have access to, just like we always suspected it would be. But of course, the people orchestrating these campaigns of lies, they don't care. By the time the truth comes out, they've already moved on to the next lie. They did the same thing. They're doing the same thing right now with COVID vaccines and the 2020 election, feeding their audience a constant stream of what they want to hear. No consideration of what is true and what is false and who is being put in danger by the lies.